Hey, Julian. Is there a tech death metal band that I missed? Corpse Paint, that is. Oh, sorry, I need to move my microphone. Here we go. What the... Seems alright. Hey, Jordan. That's stuff. You can't hear my voice? You sure? Hey Milo, received a 1mm titanium pick, same shape as Flow. It doesn't sound bad, it's got a metal sound to it, but it really doesn't bother much. The strings have been alright. Ah, that's cool. Yeah, I haven't tried a metal pick ever. Because it's, you know, I'm just wondering what the sound would be like, but... It's, also, it's kind of like, you know, everyone has a personal preference. I know that, what's his face? Brian May used like a, what are they called? Pence? Like P-E-N-C-E coin. Hey Stuart, well, as, I should, well, not as low as possible, because I find I want to be able to get a grip on the string, and if it's too low, I'm not gonna be able to grip the string. So basically, I don't know in millimeters or whatever. So it's just I don't like it when it's too low. So that obviously I don't want the guitar to fret out, but also not too low because I can't get a grip when I want to bend. You know, all that stuff you do between all the fun stuff. That's a joke. So yeah, and also I use 10s, 10 to 46. So I'm used to some resistance anyway. I find it very, very hard to play on lower gauges. You won't get it, Julian. It's a secret. Bob, welcome. Also, don't know if you're aware, but I have the Practice Room Pro membership, which is where I can help you personally. In the forum though, so it's not DMs, it's in the forum, but you get all my courses and all that stuff. It's basically a step down from the guitar personal training, where you just get my WhatsApp, and just like Jorda, you have me in your pocket. That sounded weird. This one is, I'm still helping you personally, but it's gonna be for everyone's benefit. And why I'm mentioning that is because I just started it, and we're closing in on, I think we're at 24 or 25 members now. and I'm gonna raise the price to $99 a month very soon. So if you want to join in, you should do that now, because this $49 per month will not last for long. And anyone who joins will keep that price, obviously. Hey, Paul. Well, not that late. It started like, what, 5 minutes ago. Shredflation. No, it's actually protecting the members, because if I get, you know, it's gonna be a limit to how many I will be able to handle anyway. So raising the price then is a good thing. Also, it's way too cheap now, really. But I wanted to get it started for everyone, because you get all my courses, and you get, you know, the most valuable thing which is my time. Well, the most valuable thing to me, which is my time. So that's the deal. Yeah, stream is a bit later today. A question about practicing slowly. Do you practice the pick tilt to correspond? No, I just practice. Well, I use transition time, so I do. And I don't think about like, oh, I need to tilt it this way now. I don't think it's necessarily anything bad about doing that, but I don't do it. So I just find that practicing slowly using transition time, and also practicing slowly using the planting technique helps a lot. When I started with this technique first, I was shifting between a single string. That was really nice to do that clean in time. A great worker. Yeah. So Jara is basically, not basically, he's in my personal training program. So I've been doing this with him already. And actually, it's more about how you practice things than what you practice necessarily. To a point, obviously, if you want to get good at 3-note per string picking, you can't just sit, you know, pick a single note, right? But it's way more important how you practice stuff, because if you practice things in a bad way, you will just get shitty results. And you know, just the way it works. And usually people get that easier if I say like, well, imagine you're trying to learn golf or any type of sports movement, and you just did 10,000 shitty reps why would your form magically just get perfect on the 10,001st rep? So it's the same thing here. If you sit there and like grind through bad reps and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna clean it up later, it's not gonna happen. So it's most of us already have the speed already, you know. It's just that we don't have the coordination yet, because some things are like very easy on like how you do it. Like, oh, sweep, you just go like this, right? But to say that, like, oh, it's a one downstroke and then one upstroke, and then you just do that, and then so do that now. Obviously, that's not going to work, because you need, even though it's easy to understand and you can do this already, that doesn't mean you can sweep cleanly. Exactly, Julian. You should hear my voice talking down to you. No, don't do that. No, but it's, no one is above the basics. You know, you can't get too good at the fundamentals of anything. So, because when you start thinking like that, that's when shit is gonna go downhill. Stuart, I've never thought about it until recently when I started trying to alternate pick things. I found that I was constantly tilting the pick down and running into issues with outside picking lines. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can think your way through that stuff. And I even saw, you know, Cracking the Code guy himself, Troy Grady, talk about it in their forum, where when they have people who do two-way pick slanting, which is basically when you have to do upward pick slanting here and then downward pick slanting. So any 3-note per string scale, you need to do that. And he said people who've learned that intuitively, as I did, and anyone that he basically looked at doing the two-way pick slanting, he said that looks way more natural, because when people sort of develop it on purpose, so to speak, it kind of always looks a bit like it looks very unintuitive. And the way that I developed it was just repeating things many times, and you start to get a feel for, like, or I think the best example is if you do that, and if you have the wrong pick slant here, you're gonna feel like, fucking hell, it feels like I'm swimming upstream, because you're getting the wrong, you're sort of if you think of three ways here, so here's downward pick slanting, neutral, and upward pick slanting. If you need downward pick slanting and you're doing upward pick slanting, that's gonna feel really bad. It's gonna feel like you're fighting the instrument, because it kind of is. You kind of are doing that. So either try to be neutral or do the correct slant, if that makes sense. So but it's not something, I think, that, you know, even if you know all that stuff, you still need to develop it to the point where you can just feel it. And the way to do that is to do, well, at least one way to do that is to do a shit ton of reps that are perfect. And also I like to do it, you know, with different practice techniques, like starting on what I call looping, where I started from a different point of a loop. Because doing that, you will also get the outside and inside picking. You get way more out of any type of repetitive thing than just doing it one way. Because if you do it only one way, and then you end up playing something like, and all of a sudden you're starting on a pick stroke that you're not used to, and then you're gonna feel really bad, because then you've practiced this, but you only learn to do it in that one way, and that's gonna drive you insane. Possibly. Juan, you know the Magic Mirror Challenge, when I learned it wrong and I realized after watching around that I was missing a couple of notes, so I'm going back to it. Yeah, that would be good. And the missing notes. That's but you know, I didn't give you the tabs for a reason, like I stated in the post, where basically I want you to watch the video, get the practice advice, and also see the fingerings. Because if you just do it, and then you're probably going to realize that, oh, while one finger might work in one place, it's not going to set you up for the next section. So it's better to, be a bit more, take it a bit slower initially, and then get the fingerings right. And obviously you can change the fingerings if you want, but at least this is a finger that will work as well. Hey Ian. Hey Marcus. Sounds like Ian is summoning the devil. Hiya, Beelzebub. Are you using the Petrucci, Archetype Petrucci, Neural DSP? Well, I think I started from a preset. I hate dialing in amps. I started from a preset from Kiko Loureiro, and then I just changed it until it sounded like this. Jonah, if you have to choose 2 note per string or 3 note per string, what would be your favorite back in the day and why? If it's no, they feel completely different. So that's the thing. You see a lot of players who can be like really good at 3 note per string picking, but then like 2 note per string is like Paul Gilbert being one of them. I think he's better at it now, but it was an old seminar where he talked about like he was trying to play this thing. Going up in 6s kind of thing. And even though he could rip through 3 note per string, he couldn't just do the same thing with 2 note per string. And I think the same thing with Eric Johnson. He was really good at, or he's still really good at 2 note per string, but you don't hear him do a lot of regular 3 note per string scales. So I just think they feel quite different from each other. But also I think they complement each other, so if you work on both, you're going to be much better off. Well, yeah, but I think that's why you see all these, guitar players, the legends talk about how much they practiced. Because also they didn't necessarily practice the best way initially. Neither did I. I've learned more and more every year how to practice better, and also I can, try things on students, and then I can see like what works for. So it's not just me that it works on, but all this stuff that some things that I found out for myself, but most of it is like that I learned from classical musicians and whatever. Just better approaches to practice. But what seems to connect everything is like focusing on accuracy when you practice. I think that's super important. It's so funny. I've a lot of people like, well, what about you need to push the speed? It's like, yeah, but it's going to be very few guitar players that have a bad technique, and the reason being because they didn't push the speed enough. It's way more likely that they pushed the speed a little bit too much, and then the accuracy was like, yeah, well, I'll clean it up later. Which is, I say that all the time, but I think it's the stupidest quote ever. Just clean it up later. Ugh, so it doesn't make any sense. Hey, listen. Well, it's not a myth, but it's misunderstood, because Malcolm Gladwell, who popularized that saying. He took that from a Swedish scientist, actually. He was a professor at University of Florida, Anders Ericsson. So he lived in Florida, but he was from Sweden. And all he did was looking at high performers and how they practice and all that stuff. And they saw in the study they did that people or basically they didn't see anyone reaching a really high level without putting in around that time of practice, around those hours of practice. But another thing that's misunderstood here is that it's 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, which is far different from just, if I do that for 10,000 hours, I'm going to be amazing. No, you're going to be really shit because the quality is down. So deliberate practice is more about really practicing things that, in a way that it's going to help your brain to execute it in the way that you want. So that's super important. Yeah, but exactly. But that's why I make these courses so other people can have them. Beelzebub, John, when and why and how did you learn hybrid picking? I learned it. I started learning it in 95, 96, when I was at GIT, because I saw Brett Garson there, and also Alberto Lombardi is an Italian guitar player. He plays a lot of acoustic now. He actually gigged with Tommy Emmanuel. He's a really good player, and he used to do a lot of those types of arpeggios. So that's where I got those from. I also would do these 2-1-2 shapes. But then I had a period quite long after that as well where I practiced a lot of flamenco guitar. I never got really good, but I practiced it for like 2 years, and I would sit in front of the TV and do all these exercises and rasguados and all the different techniques, and that really helped my fingers to start coming into the game a bit better. So it's kind of a long answer, but it's the same thing here. Like start small, and I would rather have you like do 5-10 minutes a day and do very simple exercises, but you do it perfectly. And then when you've done that for maybe a month, you can start trying to do like, okay, can I do a lick now? Because if you start with the lick, it's going to be so much stuff to think about, and you're probably going to get the technique wrong. So, John, any tips on playing the glass prison arps? The trick is how? Yeah, don't. Don't do it. No, it's the same thing. Same thing as anything. Like, but also, I'm not sure Petrucci alternate picks them anyways. I don't even know where that comes from. So depends on why you want to play them. Do you want to play them because of an alternate picking challenge, or do you want to play them with sweep picking? It's just as with anything else. You need to break it down in smaller pieces and work on the parts. You work more on the parts that are tricky and less on the parts that you can do. But they're definitely hard. So the hybrid picking really using a finger. So when I do that, I don't really think about it because it becomes automatic after a while. And I would say most of my hybrid picking would be, using one finger. And then for some sequences, I would use 3. But, so I think you can get a ton of mileage of just learning to use this finger, and that's actually not that difficult compared to learning to use these two. And I think the way that hybrid picking works, it's not really that. When you want to go down a sequence, it's kind of clumsy because you need to go when you go from low to high, you kind of lead with the pick. But when you go down, You need to lead with the fingers, and it can be way more tricky. Thank you, Ilseroli. No, just 0. Sorry. I didn't realize it was just borders. What's your name? Unless you have some really funny parents. But anyway, so it's not that helpful going down, but when I do stuff like, it's helpful because I go back, but if it doesn't really, you can't do like if I go like this, I'm helped by going up to the G string here, but if I start on the G string, it doesn't really make sense to go pick and then finger, right? So it really works better in one direction. Hi Oscar, I've seen a lot of people talk about speed bursts when practicing with speed, but I can't really call you talk. Well, I have a video on it, and I talk about it in a lot of videos, but I think it's a bit overblown, and it's just a good way to sell courses and say like, oh, do this and you will be so much faster in X amount of days. And one of the guys that talk about this a lot, he even said, I saw in an interview, that, oh yeah, it only works, up to a point. So there you have it. I mean, basically it's like the other side of the same coin of practicing slowly. But it's great for certain things. You can find like, if I can do that, but I can't do, then I know that, okay, whatever picking technique or whatever picking motion I'm using here, that will work for the, for that tempo. So that's great, but it's not gonna be, I think it's very exciting for a lot of people because they see like, oh shit, I can play so much faster now. But if you keep doing that only, you're gonna reach a point where it doesn't really help as much anymore. So I think it's super important to, realize how we learn shit, and don't neglect the slow stuff. It's so important because it's one of the things that annoy me the most about YouTube, because everyone is like, do this, then you will shred in blah 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 days. So it's such a modern day snake oil shit. So there's no shortcuts. Speed burst is a tool. So for example, in my Practice Room Pro membership now, I have a list of practice tools where I think it's like 9 or 10 of them, where I go through each, the practice tools that I use, from rhythmic variations, speed bursts, looping, planting, all that stuff, right? And it's just one of the tools. It's not gonna solve everything. And I think, the saying like, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's how people seem to do this with speed bursts. Like, yeah, we're gonna do speed bursts here. Yeah, but maybe get your shit together first, and then that will help you. So your brain will respond better to doing, first of all, it will always respond well to practicing slowly. Even though when you do it, you can feel like, oh, nothing is happening. This is boring. Oh, what is this? Oh, I'm so far away from my goal. But because for whatever reason, people see it as such a linear thing. I think that's probably, Petrucci's fault with the Rock Discipline video, where you kind of see him do the whole, start from whatever 100 BPMs and then end up with 200 or whatever. But obviously he didn't do that for the first time in the video. But it seems like a lot of people think that, and like, oh yeah, that's how it works. But that's not how it works. It takes way longer than that, obviously, but there's way more better techniques when it comes to practicing than just trying to push the metronome. If it weren't, you wouldn't see like people all over the place in forums and Facebook posts and YouTube videos and like, oh, I've been stuck at 102 BPMs now for 2 months. That's not normal if you're practicing a lot, right? Then that leads me to believe that you're probably practicing at a tempo where the quality of the reps are crap, and you're basically just teaching your brain to do more of what you don't want. So, anyway, hey Patrick. So speed burst, great tool, but it's not the be all end all of practicing. But it's such a, again, it's such a, you know, sexy thing to put in a title, and also when people, if they haven't tried it before, they can see like, oh, this, you know, it feels so much faster now. But again, it's kind of like it's a bit of a mirage in a way. It can help you for sure, but chances are that your technique isn't where you want it to be because you haven't done enough perfect reps. Not that you haven't tried to play things faster. So yeah, so experiment with it, but don't look at it like the, you know, the savior of guitar technique. Well, same here. I mean, luckily I didn't waste years, but I tried all this stuff, you know, because this was way before the Petrucci video as well. But, you know, the whole thing of like, oh, start slow with a metronome and turn it up. And the only thing that happened to me, I got up to, you know, whatever tempo was hard for me at the time. And then I would just sit there and try to grind at that tempo or a little bit below. And I could feel when I was doing it, it's like this, yeah, it was something in me that said like, this doesn't really make sense. That this gonna, you know, my reps aren't perfect. So I think that's, and I've said this before, it's like, yeah, that metronome thing can absolutely work as well if you're super disciplined and very honest with yourself. But I wasn't honest with myself because I looked at the metronome like, you know, oh, I want to reach 120 BPMs, and then you look at the metronome and you kind of like, oh, it's starting to sound like shit now at 90, but then you keep on pushing anyway because, you know, you want to see progress. So yeah. Yeah, and that's I really hate that stuff, you know. And you know, people might buy some of my stuff and feel it's shit because they don't do it, or they don't look at the instructions, or like do because when I notate things as well, I notate it in a way that it's the easiest way to see the pattern, but that doesn't mean that's the tempo you should practice at. So a lot of people seem to skip over like the actual walkthrough of the lesson, but I think it's like it's bad, I think, when you have you sell something that's, to begin with, it's a very, very unlikely outcome that someone is going to buy your course. Even if it's 10 weeks, they're probably not going to go from not being able to play a pentatonic scale and then be Paul Gilbert in 10 weeks. It's just not realistic, especially not when it's like, oh, you only need to practice 20 minutes a day or whatever, you know, the promise is. And I know people who bought these courses, and I'm not going to name any names of who made the courses, but it's like, when they have problems, it's basically the instructor blaming them instead of like, well, you know, maybe you did this wrong, maybe you did that wrong. And, you know, not trying to be a hypocrite here. I mean, if you buy like my pentatonic picking power book, for example, and you don't do it as it's outlined, yes, it's on you. So it can be on the student, but I think the promise itself in a lot of these courses is that you're just gonna be like this shred god in a few weeks, and that's just not what's gonna happen. Exactly, Patrick. So that's the thing. You don't need to. So the experiment we did in the practice room. So that's, if you're not aware, I have two practice room communities. One is more coaching based, and that's the one that's linked up there. And that price is going to go up from $49 a month to $99 soon. And then I have another one that's basically much lower price, but it's more about the community. Anyway, so in that community, we had this 2 weeks ago practice challenge where they will practice this and then do that all over the fretboard once at very... Actually, I think you did it twice. up and down. Just no pushing the tempo and just seeing like, did they get faster at that thing even without pushing the tempo? And everyone who did it got faster to varying degrees. So you don't need to push the tempo. That's the thing. And also, what I did, I practiced a shit ton of slow stuff. And then I would improvise and have fun and try different licks, and then I would push the tempo and just, you know, if I made a mistake, all right, so what? So basically I didn't even use speed burst back then. It was just kind of my speed burst practice. But I would still say that 80-90% of my practice was slow and perfect. So there was no way that, you know, the few mistakes I would make when I was trying to push it later would impact my technique in any negative way. Because yes, you need to try it faster as well, because, you know, otherwise how would you know if it works? But the whole thing of like sitting there and grinding at, you know, oh shit, I've been at 108 BPMs now for 3 weeks, and just you grind away at it, and you know it's kind of not working, and you're tensing up, and it sounds crappy. That's just gonna get ingrained in your muscle memory. So you're digging a deeper hole the whole time, which is boring. Let's see. Well, I mean, separating the hands is good. And 0 for me, I was in serious denial about how bad my right hand speed and accuracy was, or is. Yeah, but also a lot of things, 0, is like, you can probably do this, but can you coordinate the left hand at the same time? So the fretting hand is actually, you have more things in the fretting hand that can go wrong than the right hand, really. So that's why I always recommend people practicing just hammer-ons. And you can, what I usually do is this. That kind of deal, and do that on all strings. So you get the correct timing in the fretting hand, because otherwise it doesn't matter if you have a perfect right hand, if you can't play in time with this one, it's not gonna matter. Scott Brockway, some courses so terrible, just a bunch of information with no context. Some popular YouTubers are terrible teachers. Yeah, but I think that's the thing though. There's a lot of popular guitar YouTubers that are not necessarily great players. And I have, you know, Brett Garza is one of my favorite players ever. He maybe has like, actually I'm gonna go check how many subs he has. He used to have very few, which is crazy. Yeah, basically has half as many subscribers as I have, and I have a small channel. He has 11,400, and I think I have 21,000. So basically half my thing, which is fucking ridiculous. And then you have like, you know, Music is Win, for example, and I don't want to shit on him specifically, because he's not, you know, what he's doing is very different from what I'm doing, but it's still like, it's clearly not about who's the best guitar player when it comes to who has the most subscribers. But then I think when they have a super big audience, they even if they've never been into teaching at all, it just looks like a good thing to do. Like, oh, you can make a lot of money here, just make a course. And then it becomes a problem that they're not that great of a player. Well, it's nice to hear, Scott, that it has helped you. Yeah, but, also I think it's good. Well, not good. I think it's crucial for people to know that it takes a long time, because otherwise you know, you sit there like, oh, I've done this for 10 minutes now for almost a week, and you're like, why can't I play it super fast? Like, well, you need way more reps than that. So when you start doubting yourself, that's really shitty, and that's probably what I like the least about these courses that promise too much, because then you're gonna think that, oh, but I didn't get the result, must be something wrong with me, when it's nothing wrong with you. It's just that the method that they're teaching might work if you did it for a year, but it's not going to do it in the time frame that they do. So that's the problem. So but also it's really hard to sell things and not promise a lot of things. But I have a really hard time doing it because it feels like I'm lying to people. And I never want to do that. And I'd rather tell them the truth, and then if they're not up for practicing a lot, maybe they should buy some other course, or, you know, take up Pokemon or something. Yeah, but also Andy Wood, I think he's, you know, he has quite a few subscribers, but he has like, and this is my personal preference, I think Andy Wood plays circles around Bernth, for example, but YouTube-wise, Bernth has way more subscribers. And equally, I think Bernth is way better than Music is Win. And also better is like, music is subjective, so it doesn't really mean anything. But, you know, it's... I always feel like, you shouldn't take advice from anyone's playing. If you don't like the playing of someone, you know, you shouldn't take their advice just because they have a big YouTube channel. Right? Because it's kind of like when Dr. Phil came out with a weight loss book. It's like, have you read your own book? You know, it's like, I probably would want to take advice from someone who's actually, I don't know, maybe he was super big before, but I don't think so. I don't even see any difference in him when he came out with the book. It was years ago, and I still remember it was like, this is not very believable. You just have a big platform, and now you're trying to sell shit to people. So, yeah. Oh, did music is recommending stuff that will give you repetitive stress in it. Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff as well, when people sit there and like really practice super fast, that's where you get into trouble with your fingers as well. So again, touch wood, I have not had any problems with my hands, even though I've practiced up to 12 hours a day at some points, because most of my practice would be really, you know, focused and whatever. So. Yeah. Wish I could still play for 6 hours a day, but what I won't do then my advice I try to make. Yeah, but if you do that, then you do it consistently, Scott. It doesn't matter. You will improve a shit ton. 2 to 3 hours is plenty. You know, if you don't spread yourself too thin by like, oh, I'm gonna do 10 things. Instead, be like, okay, where do I want to be in 3 months? And then you go hardcore on one thing. So I think that's better. Hey, Vinelius. Let's see. There are also people who tell us to push for speed, which I never understand and never works. Yeah, so I've always say most people tells you to push for speed. And they always bring up like, oh, but Sean Lane. Yes, but Sean Lane is like an outlier's outlier. He was very, very different from normal people. So, and he could also play sloppily. So, you know, that's blasphemy to say, but I would say that for the picking stuff, Paul Gilbert is way cleaner. So, yeah, but that's what happens, Patrick. You try things, and you know, people, especially if you buy a course or whatever, and then you try it and it doesn't work. Then you're gonna be you're probably gonna blame yourself more than, you know, the information. Yeah, Sean was like very different. But also, Sean was also, you know, as smart and everything that he was like convinced that you couldn't develop a good coordination between the third and fourth finger. And he said like, oh, it's only Paul Gilbert that can do that. I was like, that's not true. You know, I can do it. Every student that I show this can do it. So I think as smart as Sean was, he also had some kind of weird things where like it's impossible to get that, you know, level of coordination that you can do with 2/4. So yeah, Hey Vincent, nice to see you, man. Vinilius regarding pushing for speed. In my experience, you become much more aware of actually how sloppy your playing is when you do tons of slow good reps. Yeah, exactly. I actually saw a pianist talk about this. Not a penis, a pianist talk about it. And he said that if you, when he has students that say like, well, I can't do it slow, then it's probably you might find like, oh shit, when I do it slowly I hear all these mistakes. But what happens when you try to play it fast, all your mistakes are still there, but you kind of don't hear them as much because you're playing it faster. So that's a very important thing, and so you need to control the instrument. Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about using 3 and 4, but I think you need to work on it. It's kind of like a lot of people, I think less so these days, but a lot of people before used to only use 1, 2, 3, and very rarely the pinky, and it was like, oh, the pinky is a weaker finger. It's like, yeah, but if you don't use it, it's gonna fall behind even more, right? But if you use it, you're gonna find like, oh, it works as well as any other finger. You might always be more comfortable with using 1 and 2, but that doesn't make it a good idea to not use these fingers. It just means that these are more comfortable, but you can still do whatever you want to do with these fingers, and especially when you combine it all, you can do way more than if you just use 2 fingers or 3 fingers. So it's a lot of, well, for lack of a better term, bro science when it comes to electric guitar. Let's see. I've become so much more aware of my muscles and finding a comfortable position how to do stuff right. Exactly. So you need to find that relaxation. Ian, I just started trying your lesson building long fast lines. Is 6 at 120. What speed should I practice at? Well, I will use all the practice tools, Ian. Because if you want to get to that level, that's more about performing it. Because if you can play something, I mean, if you take whatever part of that building, that's a YouTube video, right? Because I've made a lot, so I don't know exactly what I went through in that one. But you need to practice slowly. And then you can, try the beat-to-beat speed burst and all that kind of stuff as well. But the majority of the time you should practice slowly. And when it comes to speed bursts, I tend to do just as fast as I can do it, really. And it's or you can also do it with a metronome. But the point of speed burst, though, is to price it at a tempo that's too fast for you to play the whole thing. So I would have to look at that thing specifically and to see what I was talking about. It might be a beat-to-beat practice thing that I go through there. It should say in the video what I think you should do. But the difference for me when I practice is that any type of general technique, like working on scales, any kind of pattern, that's where I do a lot of slow reps. Anything repetitive, that's where I price really slowly. And then when I'm trying to learn a specific lick, that's where I will apply all this like rhythmic variations and speed bursts and all the different practice tools. I don't do that on just normal scales and exercises. I have 2 modes of practice basically. Oscar, I find that expectation ruins a lot of practicing. Expect a certain amount of progress in a short time, and then when that's not happening, it can deter you. That's why I like you one month. Yeah, exactly. But I think it's technically you can't improve as you sit down and practice. And people can be like, well, I could feel improvement. Yeah, but that might be you learned something new. That's fine. But you know the whole thing. What you get to a certain level one day, and then when you start the next day, you kind of feel like you went back a few steps. It's because it's it's like yeah, they call it the practice effect, where like not the most inventive title, but basically you get to a certain point as you practice and you think like, oh, I really made progress now, but then the progress that matters is what sticks to the next day, and it's something physical that happens in our brain. So our brain actually changes after we give it the new information. So that's why it's so important to give it the right information, because if you get it, shit information, it won't have any idea that that's shit information, because then your brain would be like, why did you keep repeating it then? Like you told me this like hundreds of times yesterday that this is what you want me to do, and then the next day when you do it, and you're like frustrated because your hands are doing exactly what you told them to do the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that, and that sort of compounds as well. But the cool thing is that once you start practicing correctly, that will also compound, and it's not like you have to undo everything you've done wrong. Instead, you build something new instead. So just practice focusing on accuracy, and you will see that gets better every day, pretty much. And also, anytime you start practicing something new, you're gonna have like almost like gym newbie gains, or like, oh shit, look at my muscles. But that tapers off after a while, and it will come like maybe in the week 3 or something, even week 2, late week 2 usually, where like, oh, I don't see the same progress that I did in the first 7 to 10 days, and then you might feel like, oh shit, it's not working anymore, and then you stop and change something else. But that's where you need to keep going for a bit more, because it will come, a couple of weeks later, you get into another level all of a sudden. So I would stick to something for at least 30 days, unless there's something like you feel is super, you really hate it, or you really need to, that, yeah, sure, change it. But in general, try to keep pushing through, and if nothing is changed in your practice, you're not practicing doing anything stupid, or you're making a lot of mistakes when you practice, and you actually practiced, then you can be sure that it's just your brain getting shit together, and that can mess with the results per day, so to speak. Yeah, everyone underestimates the amount of repetitions. So you guys know who Mike Mangini is, right? So it's this guy. Sorry. It's based. At this point, he wasn't the drummer of Dream Theater, but this is a drum book, but it's also about practicing. And he talks about practicing here. I'm just going to read this to you, so you can get an idea of how many reps you need to improve. Let's see. Here. All right. So he has a thing here called solidify through repetition. Muscle memory is an abstract sounding concept that has very real implications for a musician. There is a point at which a physical motion gets locked in at a given tempo. For example, I found that if I focus my practices on the up-down motion of both legs by playing double kick patterns constantly for X minutes, hours without stopping, and consistently Y sessions per week for said weeks in a row, my speed will increase noticeably, and the increase will last for months even without any further work on that particular aspect. And then it says, I know exactly what you want to ask. What the heck are X, Y, and Z? And the answer is, it depends. So basically, it depends on just how diligent you are. Although, and listen to this, although it might seem contradictory, it's been proven time and time again that playing slowly and really focusing on your technique yields much greater increases in speed than practicing at the highest possible tempo. Well, how about that? And then it says, depends on how often you've done this before, the effects do become more pronounced as you go on. It depends on your physical condition, blah, blah, blah. But here is the important part. I don't want to cop out totally though. In my experience, and we're talking about a lot of time here, both personal practice and teaching, there is a standard that works well for most people. So here's the big thing, right? My students and I have found that we have to maintain any repeated motion for at least 90 consecutive minutes. Right, so 90 minutes in a row for 4 days a week for 6 weeks. to see a noticeable improvement and to stay up there for months, even without practicing the motion again. So I'm not saying that you have to do that necessarily, but that's what, you know, he found has worked. So if you take that 90 minutes times 4, right? That's, what's that? That's 6 hours per week. And then you do that for 6 weeks. Then you will see a noticeable improvement. And that's, you know, any repetitive, basically, if you take the Paul Gilbert lick. Thing is, if you repeat that for 6 hours per week, for 6 weeks, of course your technique is going to be way better without even you trying to push the tempo. And as he said, if you focus on the accuracy, you're gonna get a way higher speed increase. So let's see. Sometimes the plateau remains for weeks. Yeah, regarding speed, I've noticed I have very specific things that hold me back speed-wise, which I've noticed after getting rid of all general slowness doing slow reps. Any idea on how to approach these very specific things that show up only when playing fast? Well, that's very hard to say because I haven't seen you play Venalius, and it's hard to do over this in this chat thing. So I would suggest that you either sign up for the Practice Room Pro, and then I can help you one-to-one, even though it's in a group setting, or sign up for the guitar personal training thing, and then I can do it behind the scenes. Yeah, it's one of my favorite books. I bought that book like late 90s, so it's not about drum. It is about drums, but it's also a lot about general, you know, developing your ability to play. And Mike Mangini, you can feel like, well, he has no soul, he's a drum machine or whatever, but when it comes to getting shit down, he has a system for it and he can do it. So that's I'm always drawn to that, where I can see like someone knows what they're doing and they can teach it. That's the like the optimal thing. Because you don't need to do the, you know, if you're a drummer, for example, and you're like, well, I don't like the fills he plays. Well, you can develop the technique with the systems that he's using, and then you play what you want to play. So that's the sort of beautiful thing with this stuff. Anyway, I'm gonna end on that. So I'm also gonna remind you again, because I know how this goes. Once this price goes up, you're gonna have people be like, hey, I wanted to get in on that price, can I please have it? But I can't do that. So once the price goes up, it's up, because I can't change it the other way once I raise the price. So that's the thing. Let's see where you are. And, you know, a lot of you might be like, I'm not interested, and that's fine too. I have a ton of free stuff for all you guys. But if you're even a little bit on the fence here, I would do this before I raise the price to $99 per month instead. Let's see. All right, so I'll be back streaming someday soon.